My dear friends, thank you very much for joining me for another video. Now, Jordan Peterson content is normally content I'd post on my second channel, but to diversify a little bit and to cater to all audiences, or to as wide as an audience as possible, I'm going to be posting it on the reaction channel today, and we're going to see what you guys think about this. Now, this is always going to be an argument, right? The gender debate is always going to be there. It's never going to get old. It's always going to be relevant. So today we're checking out Jordan Peterson discusses whether men and women can ever be equal, right? And on the second channel, if you guys have not yet subscribed to Goals and Growth, what are you even doing? Go ahead, subscribe to that second channel and change your life forever. But on the other hand, ladies and gentlemen, it's always going to be an argument. There's always going to be two sides to this coin. And remember that what I said on the second channel is it's turned into cherry picking. It's no longer about fighting for equality across the board. It's about cherry picking for equality in certain industries that hold power positions, right? But let's see what Jordan has to say about this. Make sure you subscribe to iChain Reacts, and as a token of my gratitude for you tuning in with me today, I'm going to be providing 3 links in the description. These are links to my separate motivational ebooks that I put a lot of time and effort into, and that will help you in some way, shape or form. All that you're going to need to provide me with is your email address, and to be completely 100% transparent, I am going to use those email addresses to send you a weekly motivational motivational letter. So I believe in being as transparent as completely possible. I believe in being as transparent as possible with you guys. So yeah, go ahead, join or download those ebooks rather, and yeah, you will benefit in some way, shape or form. As I said, thank you very much for tuning in. Let's get it.
What do you understand by equality, Sophie? What does it mean to you?
Freedom.
Can you be more? Is it equality of opportunity? Is it equal pay across the board? Is it something more than that?
I think equality is better for everyone. I think,
okay.
you know, I'm really delighted. You know, I love my job because it's an optimistic and a hopeful job, which is about creating more choices for people. I'm interested in people being able to have different choices and having equality of outcome.
Fair enough.
Aha. Well, so you're going to have choices and equality of outcome. What if people choose different things, which is what they've been doing in Scandinavia? So the Scandinavian countries have moved more towards gender equality than any other countries, and the personality differences in Scandinavia have increased rather than decreased, and the proportion of women who are choosing STEM fields has decreased rather than increased.
Interesting fact, right? So he's saying that in those countries, equality has increased across the board, but personality differences have also increased. One would think if you're striving for equality, if you're striving towards the same thing, you might be the same type of person, right? But Jordan, as per usual, providing us with some interesting facts here.
Increased rather than decreased, and the proportion of women who are choosing STEM fields has decreased rather than increased. So as cultures become more gender neutral, the number of women who choose STEM fields decreases.
What do you mean by STEM fields?
So science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So if you let men and women make their choices, what actually happens is that they specialize in different situations.
Yeah.
You don't get
yeah, so that's actually I was also like, what is STEM fields? But so basically what he's saying is that in those countries, even though equality has increased, and even though these women have gained more freedom, so to speak, and remember that they always talk about science, they always talk about engineering, they always talk about these high-paying jobs or fields that women need more involvement in, right? We've seen that in numerous arguments. But now he's saying that in those countries, even though women have gained that much more freedom, they've moved away from those fields, which is actually pretty interesting to see. But let's continue.
What actually happens is that they specialize in different situations, and you don't get equality of outcome.
Could they not have been programmed to have those views from the moment we raise them and give boys Lego and construction?
No, because what happens is that as countries get more egalitarian, which means there's less programming of that sort, the differences get larger, not smaller. And the scientific data on that is clear, and most of it was generated by people who have a left-leaning bias, so you can't blame it on conservative scientists. Yeah. It was a shock to everyone to find that out.
That's actually...
Coding is like...
That goes completely against what we initially thought. We thought, okay, let's work towards more equality. You would be thinking that, okay, many people are going to flock to more or less the same fields, and that's going to be that, right? Because those fields are what they fought for in the first place. Those were the fields that they needed that involvement in. But now we see them straying and becoming more diverse. Pretty interesting fact.
You know, with coding, when you're in that like flow state, you're hyper-focused, you're not really aware.
Sophie,
I think the difference between Jordan and me is that we look at evidence and we lean towards different theories. So Jordan's theory is very much evolutionary, you know, that there are inherent differences in men and women. Mine is very much more social role theory, if you like, and that men and women are taking on different roles due to the expectations that society puts on them. And it's interesting that Jordan frequently cites Scandinavian countries where they've made more, like there's nowhere in the world that women are equal, but Scandinavia has made the most progress towards shared parenting, etc.
Yep.
That said, it's not done yet. There's nowhere in the world where this is done yet.
But it's having the opposite effect that the gender equality types predicted. Opposite, not the same. And it isn't a theory, it's actually data driven by tens of thousands of surveys and the best scientific literature on the topic. It's not a theory, and I didn't come about it because of my political perspective. I looked at the data. What it showed was that as countries become more egalitarian, the differences between men and women grow. They don't shrink.
So what I'm interested in is data and analysis as well, and I'm particularly interested in the ones presented, such as the ones by the University of Southern California, which discovered that change towards gender equality is actually being slowed by beliefs that are legitimizing social inequalities on the basis of sex. And I'm also interested, I mean, like Jordan, I look at the data.
Okay. So if I understand that statement correctly, is she's saying that the programming from childhood, perhaps, that women should do this, men should do this, is causing slower progress towards gender equality in the West. I think I'm understanding that correctly, am I?
Change towards gender equality is actually being slowed by beliefs that are legitimizing social inequalities on the basis of sex. And I'm also interested.
Which is also believable, because if you've been programmed to think a certain way by your parents or whoever raised you, then obviously those beliefs are going to carry over into adulthood. So that might make sense. I could also see an argument for that.
Is actually being slowed by beliefs that are legitimizing social inequalities on the basis of sex. And I'm also interested, I mean, like Jordan, I look at the data and I look at the studies, and I'm really also very much interested in studies like the analysis that was done by the American Psychological Society, which looked at 45 analysis of whether there's sex difference over 20 years. And its conclusion was that men and women are basically alike in terms of personality, in terms of cognitive ability, in terms of leadership. But what it did find was that media depictions of men and women as fundamentally different perpetuate misconceptions, as does workplace bias.
Oh God, so it's my fault.
So, no, well, you know, you're leaving soon. It's okay.
Men and women actually are more the same than they are different. But the issue is that small differences at the population level can turn into very large differences at the extreme. So, for example, men and women are broadly similar with regards to aggression, although men tilt a little bit more towards aggression. So that if you picked a random person out of the population, male and female, and you guessed that the male was more aggressive, you'd be right 60% of the time. But if you take the 1 in 100 most aggressive people, they're all male. And that's why the overwhelming proportion of people who are in prisons are male. Now, do you want to equalize that? Just out of curiosity? What about bricklayers? They're 99% male. And we've got about 3/4 of the population now in universities in the humanities and social sciences are female. Are we going to equalize that? And men work longer hours. Yes. They work more dangerous jobs. They're more likely to move. They're more likely to work outside. They're more likely to participate in jobs in the STEM fields that are scalable. They make more money for those reasons. And that's all hidden under the idea that the reason that men and women make different amounts of money is because of their gender. It's a very simplistic analysis, and trying to...
I just want to say, Sophie, can you come back on that?
What I'm trying to equalise is opportunity and choice.
Fine, let's equalise choice.
You agree on that.
But we won't get equal outcome that way.
And I think that what happens
Exactly. Remember that if you equalise choice, what he's saying is that women will naturally lean to fields that are outside the STEM fields, whereas men will naturally lean towards those fields. Even if you give them the free choice, they can choose to go in those fields, but most women don't, is what he's saying.
Nobody knows because we've never done it yet.
We do know.
But
We know what's happened in Scandinavia.
But it's not fully got there yet.
No, but it's going in the opposite direction that everyone predicted, and strongly.
I think one of the things I loved about Jordan's book, which I speed read last night, so forgive me, Jordan, I've not read every line. But one of my favourite rules in Jordan's book is Rule 9, which says, assume the person you are listening to might know something you don't. And I think that in a country where men outnumber women by 2 to 1 in Parliament, in local government, where women's voices are not equally represented in media, where our education systems still are teaching boys and girls ideas of pink and blue. What I'm trying to do is work with thousands of optimistic, hopeful people for change.
Okay.
All right.
You kept very quiet through this one.
We've gotten the gist of what's going on here, but let me know your thoughts. This is a pretty interesting debate. So what's your opinion? Do you think that increasing equality across the board will make women more interested in those STEM fields? Or are they going to follow other paths? Let me know your thoughts on this whole debate. I'd love to hear it. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next time.